The Muckrakers are restless. This is today's News Talk, TNT.
Well, welcome back to the Muckrakers. Me, Andrew Eborn. I'm joined by Johnny Vedmore and also Ehden Biber. And we've been looking at the shocking developments, the IT collapse last Friday. And the suggestion is that it wasn't an accident. It was all deliberate. And this is what Ehden's saying. And he comes to take the next step and say the reason it was deliberate is to hide the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Talk me through that, Ehden. How did you make that leap?
So the situation is like that. You have an event that happened, an assassination attempt on President Trump. There's a lot of digital information that was captured, that was created at that event. Some of them you saw as videos, but there's a lot of digital information that was out there, like, for example, your phone registered in a tower that was capturing your signal. There's a lot of elements that would have been created, a lot of data that would have been created and gathered throughout this event. And my assumption is like that. If you want to make sure to remove traces of things of data that was captured, that could become an evidence against you, you would create a huge distraction. And using that huge distraction, you would take the opportunity to remove this information. Now, if you have, as I said before, like if you have let's say you have 1,000 servers that got shut down, okay, but you only have one server that actually was capturing you in the agency, whatever agency you are, was actually capturing and was actually doing a coordination, or actually, let's say, saving responsible for a secure channel between you and the assassins, less assassins. When you shut down, when all the systems needs to be accessed in a time when your security stack is not operating, you can do things that would allow you to remove it. So you have 800 servers, let's say, or 1,000 servers, and 999 of them are innocent. So when you're going to take that one server that has this information on it, it would look like a normal operation. Unless you know where to look for, you would not be able to find it. And when and for me, it's just this could be that. And should be said as well, this event also allows you the opportunity to do changes to systems that usually you normally wouldn't be able to do. So there could be insertions of code at that point of time, changing the system state into a state that it shouldn't be. We cannot really tell what has happened during that time, because again, all your security stack is off at that point of time, or most of the security stack, and the admins who go and do the changes would have the opportunity to do things that normally they shouldn't be having the capacity. One last point, usually when you have a situation like that, you don't really have access directly to a system in a very highly controlled environment. You would log on to a server that would give you the screen of the other server, and that one would capture, that server or that machine would capture all your actions. So you would have like a third eye that would allow you to monitor and replay it. But what happens if the systems are gone as well? So at this time, you do the access directly and you bypass all the security controls. It gives the opportunity to bypass all security controls that are in place and to do changes that normally would never happen.
So two things on that. There'll be people watching around the world, and they're millions, as they always do to the Muckrakers, and they're going to be turning around and saying, okay, they're the head of IT in a major corporation. What action should they be taking to prevent this? And I also want you to deal with the leap, as I say, that you said that this is something to do with the assassination of Donald Trump. If you can deal with both of those, please.
Well, organizations like Elon Musk, the first thing he did goes like remove this driver from my environment in X. So that's what he did, and it really, you need to question, if you are working in a big organization, you need to question your security stack and to understand the implications and the way that updates are being deployed into those stacks. Usually, in most organizations, just run automatically, and you rely on the vendor to not create such an event, but you cannot rely on vendors anymore. You need to change your risk assessment. I think this is from a security, as an information security expert who has been working in the risk domain. This means that you need to change your risk scenarios and it means that there's going to be a lot of changes that you need to take into consideration. That's from that perspective. With regards to the information related to Trump, I think that, and again, like, since there is so much scrutiny and since people right now are looking for everything they can, trying to find out what's happened, I think for me, the timing just seems so odd. And the only thing that one of the most plausible explanation would be there was data that needed to be erased before other people would be able to get their hands on. And that is quite a scary thing, because if that thing is actually true, it means that would be a modus of operation in the future. Every time a government would do something that would risk you, and we just had a vaccine thing. Try to imagine so-called vaccine. Try to imagine the government causing something, and then we go like, oh, we have a data loss, because many times there would be a story going like, oh, we lost all the data because of the crash, and it's very hard for people, and the justification would sound plausible unless you are extremely known in computer science, and that would allow the governments and organizations to have this, oops, we lost the database as a result of that crash. It causes damage. The database right now is being corrupted. And in this case, for example, let's say there was a database and they would say, oh, the database has been corrupted. We just restored it to the backup that we had a week before that, just before the president has been, assassination has been happening. So you lose all this week of information. It allows you to create an environment in which you would erase information. This crash or this outage allows organizations to have the capacity, and I mean government organizations, if they were involved, to erase information and do it in a way that would allow them to pretend that this was normal and logical, and they just follow the normal or standard operation procedures.
And I've got lots of people that are going absolutely crazy on social media as a result of the information you're doing. We've got somebody who calls himself Free T. I'm sure that T will be released sometime soon. I'm inclined to push back against the idea Ehden is proposing. Most servers, let alone serious systems, run on Linux, not Windows. What would you say to that?
As I said again, 85 to 90% of the US government servers are running Windows. That would be enough for you to understand. So if the target was a US government, that's the most plausible thing to run. And that would explain why the channel update was only sent to Windows and not to Linux, because if that would have been sent to all the different platforms, the internet would be shut down in a way that, well, in Linux it would not create the blue screen of death that we had, but it would create a havoc much bigger. But since the US government is about 85 to 90%, according to ChatGPT, but according also for what I know, that seems to be a very much targeting government organization, to my opinion.
Okay. Before I come to John, I just want to push you on one thing, because you're turning around and saying, okay, it explains it for Windows. You're saying there is no other explanation other than it was intentional. To make that leap from it was therefore to cover obtaining information or hiding data or deleting data about the assassination of Donald Trump, that, however, is just speculation, isn't it? Or do you have evidence of that?
Of course, I don't have evidence for that, but then in risk, what we do in risk, we look at risk analysis. What is the probability and what is the magnitude of the future loss event? That's the definition of risk. Okay, so when you have a risk scenario like that, the same way that the Secret Service would go into an event and we say, okay, what's the possibility that the shooter would be this range, this range, and it creates different layers of security around the president to make sure that would not happen. You look at risk scenarios and you said, okay, if you have an event like that, and we assume, and the assumption is that couldn't have happened. You go like, if something that couldn't have happened happens, who can do such a thing and why? And so who can do such a thing would be usually three-letter agencies, and why would be next phase would be, okay, so why would you do such a thing at this timing? The only and you go like, okay, what happened last week? Is there anything that happened in the last week that could have changed the fate of humanity? Oh yeah, maybe, I don't know. Can you think of something? So for me, it's very easy to tie the two together, because it's not about speculation, it's about probabilities. When two highly improbable events happen one after another, you go like, and the idea there's no connection between them when one could have implications on the other, you cannot just rule that out. And for me, it's the most logical thing to look at this point.
The Muckrakers are restless. This is today's News Talk, TNT.